Hey, this is Kevin from News Rocky coming to you from the downtown Norwich studio, Forward TV, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. The News Rocky Show, and your host Kevin here, former state rep, former first selectman, business entrepreneur, now News Rocky, getting in the ring each and every day. We have the pleasure today, we'll be having our special guest come on in a moment. We'll have Heather Summers, senator from the 18th district here in the state of Connecticut. Actually, I believe the only female senator in the Republican caucus in Hartford. We'll get into that and more with Heather Summers in a moment, so make sure you stay tuned and get in the ring with News Rocky. Hey, welcome back, guys. Again, it's Kevin with the News Rocky Show, and our special guest today, I want to bring her on. This is Senator Heather Summers, the senator in the 18th District, and welcome to the News Rocky Show. Senator Summers, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studio, or at least zooming into the studio with us. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning, or this afternoon, I should say?
You know, it's afternoon somewhere, it's a morning somewhere. It's all good. It's actually great. The snow is a little irritating. I don't know about you. We haven't had a lot, but the little bit we has been irritating. How about you?
You know, it's snowing here on the shore, and it's a little bit of ice. So, yeah, Mother Nature is giving us a run for our money this week. That's for sure.
Yes, yes, she
it's
is.
It's going to make us appreciate spring all that much more, right?
100%. But you got the fire crackling in the back office there. You look very, majestic here in a sense. You look like you're getting ready to run for a higher office. We'll get into that in a moment with you. But I did open with Senator Summers. You are the candidate, the third term in the Senate in the 18th District. Formerly in office there was Andy Maynard for a long time. You took that seat over. You had a couple really close battles, I guess, so to speak, at least some really good attacks from the opposite side. You've won each and every term. In fact, you and I, back in 2016, we actually ran together. And we'll be bringing up some photos of that and showing some pictures from we actually had shirts together, Heather and I, we were out campaigning. But I want to ask you, you're the only female in the Senate in the Republican caucus this year. Is that correct?
Yes, it's been that way for a few years now. So last term and this term, that's correct. That's the only female in the Republican caucus.
And you know, in a party that struggles for minority representation, to identify with that of the women voting out there as far as the conservative votes and minority votes, is it a struggle being the only woman in that caucus for you?
Well, I think. The struggle tended to be whenever there was a women's issue, they would always look and say, well, what do you think? And I have tried to express that all these issues are women's issues. The economy, schools, unemployment. Women's issues are not just what you would think of women's issues 30 years ago. Right. So I think we're starting to turn that corner in the Senate. I used to serve as the chair, and now I'm the ranking on public health. I have a healthcare background. So I think, it's been an interesting journey over the last, we're going in 5 years of being in the Senate. And it's really important to me that we get more minorities and more women in the Senate. Absolutely. We need a diversity of thought. And it would be great to have some new people generate some new ideas in the Senate. So I'm looking forward to helping new candidates run. We had some great candidates last time take a shot at running. And as you know, sometimes you have to run a couple times before you're elected. So I always want to be optimistic that there is room and a need for new people to get into this line of service for our constituents.
You know, it's interesting to me, and I thought going into this season, coming out of your victory, seeing folks like George Logan, who lost, unfortunately, and some other folks that had close races in the state of Connecticut, I thought you would have been selected as the minority leader. And I'm sorry if I ask this question, if it's uncomfortable, but I'm a little bit disappointed in the Senate for not selecting you as their representation there.
Well, I think that there is tradition within the Senate. There's many folks who feel that it's a matter of how long you've been there, how long you've served, sort of time and grade. And some of us that have not been there as long feel that it's time that we have new voices at the table to really change our party. Our party needs some work. We need some infusion of new ideas and some diverging viewpoints, and folks that are women, folks that are of color in our Senate, and right now we have a obviously male dominated Senate and some folks that have been there for quite some time. So sometimes those traditions take a little while to change.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I guess you laid it out in a very respectful way. And moving forward from that conversation, we're going to get into the issues of the day here in Hartford, in Connecticut. But I wanted to kind of ask you, coming off all the noise of 2020, the election, obviously the election that still seems unratified here in a sense that we have impeachment hearings taking place. What is your feeling just on the political scene across our country, especially in your district in Connecticut? Are you getting a feeling from the constituents that people are frustrated and tired of all the noise?
I would say that's absolutely accurate. People, I mean, I'm tired of it, and I'm actually live it. I think that what we see happening in Washington, as far as the infighting and actually really nothing getting done for the American people, is disgraceful. I also think that those who have been victorious in this election are acting in a way that is, you can celebrate your victory, you can embrace it, but at some point it's time to move on. Now you have the reins, you have to lead, and it's time to stop looking and blaming people in the past and being smug about it. That has to change. Not all the problems we have in the state of Connecticut have to do with the past administration. Let's be clear. We've had nearly 40 years of Democratic rule in the state of Connecticut. So I find that an illegitimate argument. And whenever there's an opportunity to blame Washington and the past administration, that seems to come up. And that gets a little tiresome. You have an overwhelming majority in the House and the Senate. It's your turn to lead. Let's see what you have to say. Let's see how you're going to get our economy back and running. Let's see what your budget looks like. And all we have seen coming out of Hartford, quite frankly, are extreme bills, more tax increases for the average Connecticut citizen, and pushing us further and further to the left, which will entail pushing more and more people out of our great state. And I think that's the wrong direction to go.
That's remarks there, and appreciate that. And we'll shift right over to Hartford. Currently, the governor of Connecticut, Governor Ned Lamont, has executive powers, and we actually had Ann Dauphinee on last week, and Ann was informing us that it looks like it's going to be that way until April at the least, and maybe even further. What's your feelings about the executive powers under this governor, Governor Ned Lamont?
Well, I will tell you that I sit on the Public Health Emergency Committee. And the first time that we had an opportunity to vote on executive powers, it was the very beginning of the pandemic. And it was necessary for us to vote yes for, federal funding and things that we absolutely had to do in the light of an emerging pandemic that was happening quickly, and really people did not know what it was going to look like. So I did vote yes, as did everyone else on that committee. The second time it came up, when those powers were expiring, I voted no, as did three of my Republican colleagues. It was 4-6, all the Democrats voting yes and all the Republicans voting no on this Public Health Emergency Committee. The reason for that is not that you want to strip away his power to be able to react to things dealing with the pandemic, with COVID itself, but in the fact that we have billions of dollars coming into the state of Connecticut through the CARES Act and supplemental financing and support from the federal government, of which not one legislature has any say in how that money is being spent. So that is an issue, I think, that is critical for the state of Connecticut. You have basically no representation. Your representation is supposed to be representing you as a district, but the governor of Connecticut is making all the calls, all the shots. And I don't think that's right. And so, our argument was, okay, if the governor is going to have pure executive authority over everything, then the legislature should not go back in until that expires. Why do you need us to go in? Why are we hearing bills? Why are we going through the process? It's like you can't have it both ways. You have executive authority, but then the legislature is still meeting, so we're passing bills. And how does that work? Like, please tell us how that's going to work. And we didn't get an answer. So, it's clear to me that the Democratic majority wants the governor to retain his executive authority. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think about 80% of the executive orders are actually good. They are good. They've helped our economy. You've seen some things that have happened with the restaurants. He has been able to help hospitals be lean and be able to care for those who have COVID in a way that has not been done before. We have been able to institute policies so that people have better access to vaccines. So I want to say 80% of those executive orders are good. There's no reason that those could not be codified in statute. And we can move forward and debate the 20% that we think maybe aren't so good, where money's being spent, how we're allocating resources that are coming from the CARES Act. Do we need to spend $6 million of CARES money to mail everybody an absentee ballot in advance? Can't they just request one themselves? Those kind of conversations we were not allowed to even have, and we still will not be having those. So I feel that it's important that the legislature do their job if they're back at work. And right now we're in this strange sort of virtual world of we're at work, but really he has authority. We're holding public hearings, but now Democrats are cutting off the time of public hearings. You know, we're in a virtual world and we are hearing really controversial bills in a session that we really should be just dedicating to COVID and how do we get our economy back and running? How do we get people back to work? But we're hearing these really extreme left agenda proposals that we shouldn't be hearing in this session. And we're hearing it virtually. So not only does the governor have executive authority, but we're hearing bills that are highly controversial in a virtual world where not everybody has access to internet, not everybody has broadband, not everybody can get on when they've got kids at home that they're trying to homeschool because everything's virtual learning, and get on a computer to tune into a public hearing to be able to speak for 3 minutes. So it's really a strange session, to say the least.
Sounds bizarre.
The people that are going to bear the brunt are the citizens of Connecticut, quite frankly.
Yeah, I thank you for finishing it up with that, because I do think the people of Connecticut, we talk on the show each day about the current politics here in Connecticut and across the country. And I think the biggest frustration people have is they just don't trust politicians. They don't trust the political system, and they don't trust the fact that there seems like there's a party control. Ned Lamont's been known, and I've said it quite often, he's a nice guy. When you meet him one-on-one, he's a nice man. I think the leadership you pointed out is a very, very good point. Leadership in both the House and the Senate, 40 plus years in Connecticut. That's really who's controlling this. Are you fearful that possibly tolls could pass through under this authority he has? Are you scared about other laws? I mean, point out a couple that are really concerning to you and maybe your constituents.
You know, the governor has said tolls are off the table. There are Democratic proposals for mileage taxes. We have not screened those yet in transportation. I'm the ranking member on transportation this year. The chair has said he does not want to hear those bills. So we'll have to see how that all pans out. Okay. We have really controversial bills. I mean, we can, where would you like to start? We can start with Senator Looney.
Yeah, I mean, go with Looney's bill, actually, because that's an important one. And let's focus, because there's so many. Let's just take a couple of the high ones.
So, as if property taxes in Connecticut weren't, you know, exorbitant enough, right? That's the number one thing we hear from all our constituents. The property taxes are out of control. And as you age and you retire, hopefully, and you're on a fixed income, those property taxes become something that is a decision maker for whether you stay in the state or not, because your income is just not rising at the rate of your property taxes. So we lose so many people every year to other states because of the punitive nature and the regressive nature of our property tax. It's tax on unrealized gains on a value of a property. So those are high enough. Excuse me, that's my puppy.
What kind of dog do you got there? We're hearing.
Looney has, sorry.
What kind of? No, it's fine. What kind of dog?
That he is going to not only not do anything about your property taxes, but he's going to give you a statewide property tax on top of what you pay to your towns. Right. And that is going to be based on the value of your home. So right now, your homes are valuated at 70% of the market value. The sneaky part is he didn't tell you he wants to increase that to 80%. So you're going to have a higher valuation mark. And if your house is worth over $300,000, which the average cost of a home in Connecticut is $297, this tax will affect about 75% of homeowners in the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
You will get another state property tax that will go to the state and that the state will use to fund whatever it is they choose that day.
Does this thing have legs on both sides of the aisle? In other words, I know it doesn't have to go under this current situation with the governor's authority, but does it have legs and really backing on the Democrat and Republican side, in your opinion?
Well, I don't believe any Republican is going to vote for that. I mean,
Okay.
Republicans are trying to work for property tax reform like they have been for years.
Yep.
So you have property tax and you've got this extra state tax. Then, especially for my district, you got another state property tax on top of that, which he has developed, saying if your town does not have 10% affordable housing, if it has 10% or less, you're going to get another property tax. And this one has no income. It applies to everybody in the town. We'll pay another property tax that will go to the state, and it will pay for social services in other towns.
What's the legal aspect of that piece of the law? Because there are some spot zoning issues. From my past experience, I'm not sure about how it all applies, but affordable housing is a choice of its people to some extent, right, in each community. Why is this penalty? Is it even legal to actually push this penalty tax out?
Well, that's a good question. One of the arguments we have is, well, what about our rural towns? As you know, not everybody has the ability for sewer and water to be able to create affordable housing. Many of our rural towns have 2 or 3 acre zoning. They don't have access to the services that you would want with affordable housing. It just doesn't work. So to fix that, there's another zoning law which says all those planning and zoning commissions that we have, that we choose in our small towns, that we appoint our fellow neighbors to serve on, guess what? The state wants to come in and take over that. There's a huge zoning bill that would basically override our local zoning and planning authority by a state zoning law. That is a big issue in planning and development.
Sure.
And to top it off, then we have this lovely little new tax that is coming through DEEP that is called the TIC. This is this memorandum that we have entered into with other states that's going to charge an increase in the wholesale price of gas. So guess where that price is going to be pushed down? To us as consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be paying higher gas prices, and then this extra tax that we're going to be paying, that they're calling a fee, it's not a tax, will go into some big pool that this board will decide who gets the money for walking paths and bikes paths in urban areas.
How do you do this? I did it for 2 years. I was exhausted at the end. I knew my energy could have been better spent in other places. I wouldn't win the battles. How do you keep doing this, Heather? 3 terms in, the frustration of fighting the battle and fighting. And I know people that hear you, Democrats and Republicans in your district, you're overwhelmingly popular. How do you keep getting up each day and doing this and fighting the fight?
I get up every day and fight this because I want to represent the people of my district, and the people of my district overwhelmingly do not support these extreme measures. They want to be able to live here. They want to be able to, grow old here and watch their children that live here and their grandchildren. They love Connecticut. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful place to live, but it has gotten so it's lost its way with the leadership. It really has. I mean, we are riddled with debt. We are looking at a $3.5 billion deficit, not this year, but next year. And you can't tax your way out of it. You could quadruple your income tax and you don't put a debt in it. There has to be significant structural changes to make Connecticut a viable place. And now we talk about legalizing marijuana. The hypocrisy that you see out of the leadership is something that if you watch it, it's actually like a reality TV show. Mm-hmm. We are wanting to ban flavors on tobacco. We want to not allow Walgreens to sell tobacco products. We want to tell your bodega or your little convenience store they only have to sell healthy food. But yet we're going to legalize marijuana that you can smoke. Mm-hmm. So what's the message? Mm-hmm. Smoking is bad, but it's okay because we're going to legalize marijuana and we're going to make a lot of money doing it. You can't have these things both ways. And, we have religious rights here. We have religious freedoms in the state of Connecticut. Those are under siege right now in public health. There are bills that, the Democrats will very sneakily put the title of the bill so it sounds like something it's not. My favorite to date has been the mandating of vaccines. So vaccines are already mandated. So that's not what this bill is about. This bill is about the legislature or the public health committee or the leaders of the House wanting to say if your child does not have all of their vaccinations by the time they go into kindergarten, and there's a lot more vaccinations that are required than there were when I went to school, even for diseases that are not communicable in school. Mm-hmm. Your child can no longer go to school in the state of Connecticut. They'll be kicked out.
Isn't one of the holdups with the vaccination requirement the fact that this is still a trial run medicines that are still not actually officially on the market, so therefore can't face lawsuit? Is that one of the things that's hanging out there and looming and sort of one of the big arguments at the end of the day?
No, I think one of the big arguments is that there is a multitude of vaccines that are required for a child to enter school now.
Right.
And many of these diseases are not something that you can catch in school, and you can't transmit it in school, like tetanus or hepatitis B, which is a sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
Those things are required before you go to kindergarten.
Right.
So if you are a parent who has a religious exemption because of something that is in the vaccine itself, or you feel very uncomfortable with a particular vaccine for a particular reason, you can fill out an affidavit and take a religious exemption. And what that religious exemption says is, my child is not taking this particular vaccine for whatever that religious reason is. But if God forbid, there was an outbreak of whatever disease it is they're not vaccinated for, my child will stay at home and be quarantined. Mm-hmm. That has worked forever, for years.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they want to take that religious right away from people in the state of Connecticut.
We're obviously dealing with the COVID situation, not just here in Connecticut, your district, but across the country, the world, that is. Do you think that's obviously clearly the big standard message across the board from it seems, governor after governor? I mean, we see what's going on in New York State. That governor has failed greatly. You're a public health professional. You know it well. Do you fear some of those things in Connecticut could happen, have happened, and maybe the vaccination is a good measure towards handling that in the future?
Well, I think this does not include the COVID vaccine, right. This particular bill.
Today it doesn't, but we know it's going to, right? I mean, there's no doubt that down the road that will include it.
Well, I will say the COVID vaccine has not even been studied on children yet.
Right.
So I certainly would hope that would not be something that is included.
I mean, we hear in National Conversation, Senator Summers, that there's people pushing for that, and that seems to be right out of our own president's mouth, the consideration of science. So I agree. We had Ann Dauphinee on, and we have a lot of folks that watch this show and listen to it who are anti-government telling them what to do, to your point you're making. And I guess the concern here is one of the biggest hearings you had last year was exactly this hearing. It was the largest turnout, I believe. Is that correct? For the anti-vax
yes.
folks, right?
Right. And some of these people have religious exemptions. Some don't believe in vaccines. I do believe in vaccines. My children are vaccinated, but I also believe that we as parents should have a say over the health care of our children. I do. And, again, the hypocrisy is that this legislature wants you to be able to choose to be able to kill yourself in assisted suicide. That's another bill we're going to hear. But they don't want you to choose as a parent what you feel.
Who's put that bill forward?
Should be inoculated.
Do you know who put that bill forward for the assisted suicide?
I do. That was pushed by Representative Steinberg.
Oh, really? Interesting. So, interesting guy. Been serving a long time. He was heavy into the transportation and all that through the years. So now what is the motivation for that? And this time when we're challenged with so many things going on, it sounds almost like a following the bouncing ball attempt by Steinberg. What's his objective with that bill?
Well, I think, you raise a really good point. So we have these highly charged, very emotional bills. We have assisted suicide. We have this religious exemption being stripped away from vaccinations. We also have an attack on our crisis pregnancy centers. All of those are very emotionally charged. They bring out a ton of people. The vaccine hearing we had last term was the longest hearing in legislative history. It lasts 22 hours straight. This year we've received a petition from nearly 12,000 people in the state of Connecticut that have asked, please do not hear this bill during a virtual session, because we want to come in and want to see you in person. We want to look you in the eye. We want to talk to you about how we feel about this bill. Now, to add insult to injury, we've received this petition of 12,000 people. Can you imagine, and you were there, any other bill that you received a petition for 12,000 people and having it be ignored? Well, guess what? It's being ignored. They're going to hear the bill anyway. And on top of that, the chairs have now decided that they don't care if there's 5,000 people that sign up to testify. They're going to cut off the hearing at 24 hours.
This doesn't sound like it's for the people, by the people. It sounds like it's control, and they're just trying to push their way through these making process.
Right. And that's why these virtual sessions are so difficult. That's why we need to decide, are we in as a legislature or are we not? Because this sort of part-time, we're doing it by Zoom, it just doesn't work. It completely infringes on our ability to really have a true democracy where people can come in and have their voices heard. Now, the Democrats will say that's not true because Zoom makes it so much easier. You can just hop on when you want. You don't have to drive into the legislature. But again, imagine being a mom or dad at home with 3 kids trying to virtual learn or distance learn with 3 different Zooms going on. Some of us don't even have the bandwidth at home or the broadband to be able to support another Zoom. So right. All of us are very against that on the Republican side. But again, we are so outnumbered. It's going to go through. There's going to be a push through a lot of bad legislation while no one's looking, I think. So I'm hoping that the citizens of Connecticut will do their best to keep informed. We'll try to do our best to keep you informed so you really know what's going on in the state. My favorite, though, today has got to be the fee that Will Haskell wants to put on you if you don't vote.
A fee or a tax, in a sense?
A
tax
fee
on the non-voters of Connecticut.
Exactly.
So everyone has to come out and vote. Mr. Haskell?
What if I don't like any of the candidates?
Where is Will Haskell from? Where is this?
He's from Fairfield County.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so speaks a lot. So shifting gears right over to some constituent issues that maybe are also politically motivated, but right now in this unknown time, what are you hearing from your constituents on the conversation of let's get our students back to school, let's get our restaurants and businesses back open again,
Right.
Let's get smart about this reaction to COVID. What are you feeling, and what's your opinion maybe moving forward over the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, a lot of people have said we need to get our kids back to school. And, I will say that many of the schools where my daughter goes to school in Stonington, they've done a great job. They still have school. They've only missed, had a couple distance learning days. And it has shown that school is one of the safest environments for people to be because of all the social distancing and the measures that they have taken to keep the virus at bay, the masking, the cleaning. So, we've heard overwhelmingly from teachers, they want the vaccine, they want to be put at the head of the line. And what we keep saying, because I'm on the governor's task force for a advisory committee on the vaccine, is that we have to inoculate the people that are most vulnerable. And when you look at the data, and this is the real data coming to us from the CDC, the people that are most impacted are 65 and older. Those are the people that are dying. That's where 89% of the deaths are. Then when you bring it down to 50 and above, that's 99% of the deaths. So we have to take care of those people first. Everyone will have their time. But if you are a 30 or 40-year-old teacher, you're not in the category of those that are being most impacted with significant death. That's where the deaths are.
Well, we're seeing the statistic and the numbers, even with the younger population. Students, typically young people, aren't the ones that are carrying or spreading. That's a fact that's out there from the CDC. But you bring up a really interesting point. So how many of these folks that are being categorized as COVID deaths, in a sense, have other pre-existing issues have you had those discussions in these meetings? And talk a little bit about, because the listeners of News Rocky, listen, COVID's real. No one's denying this is a real issue, but also we understand it seems like it's been politicized to some extent over the last 12 months, almost 12 months here in March. Some comments on that as far as the politicizing possibly and actually manipulating the actual numbers by taking those pre-existing cases and actually calling COVID.
That's a good question. I can't really weigh in on if COVID has been. I've seen some things that have been politicized, I will say. But as far as recording the death rate, that's a tough call. And I've had this guy, I actually was having this conversation, with my husband, who's a heart doctor, just a few days ago. And, what he was saying is, if I have 22 people in the ICU that either had COVID or just got their COVID shot, but they're also sick with other things, and they have heart conditions, and they are, they may have like chronic heart disease, whatever the issues are. So they're in the ICU. But I normally have that many people in the ICU in January. It's just sort of cyclical on people getting sick. And let's say 10 pass away. Do they pass away because they have these chronic heart conditions that they have always had, and that's normally what we see? But they did just have a COVID shot. So do I have to record it as, COVID related, or do I record it as, death because of heart failure? So those are questions that the medical community themselves are struggling with, because if you look at historically, in January or February, this is the age group that comes in, and this is a typical amount of death that you see based on these types of folks that are in with the diseases. You're still seeing that same level, but some of them have had the COVID shot or they've had COVID. So that's a hard thing to distinguish. I don't think we have an answer for that yet. Right. But I will tell you that COVID is real. And if you go to an ICU and you see the people that are on ventilators, it is a scary disease. So although this vaccine does not prevent you from getting it, it is 95% effective in preventing it. And that 5% chance that you we're not protected and you get it, you do have some antibodies, and it significantly lowers your chances of dying. So you might get just very, very mild case. So it is scary. The variants are scary. That the little spike that you see the pictures of, the red spike, that's what the mutations are occurring in. The vaccines right now seem to be effective against those variants. So I do think we do have to take it seriously. We have not seen a disease like this before. However, when I was saying that those that are impacted are in this age group, I think we need to keep that in context when everyone is either screaming that they can't go to work because they don't have a vaccine, but they're not in that really highly affected age group. And I think it's proven that social distancing and wearing a mask does work, whether people want to hear that or not, because look at what we've had for influenza this year. By masking and distancing, we have extremely low influenza. There's hardly any flu in the state of Connecticut, and that's because of the preventative measures that we've taken. I understand it's difficult. This has not been fun for everybody or anybody, but the best way that we can get our economy back and running, honestly, and up and running, our kids back to school, is to get more vaccines so more people can get vaccinated and that we can get our economy back and running. That's going to be the best thing to conquer this, because you're not, we're going to have this battle over whether I wear a mask, I don't wear a mask. I want to open the restaurant. But if we can get everybody, especially in that age group, inoculated, it's going to make it much easier to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about that economy piece in this situation. And in your opinion, your district obviously affected greatly by it. A lot of restaurants obviously have been struggling, a lot of service industry. Our own casinos, two of the largest casinos, our constituents, well, I say ours because when I served, yours as well, a lot of jobs at the casinos that are now, they're not working. Renters are struggling, homeowners are struggling who have rental properties. Let me ask you about the state pier and the impact a little bit about, this is a little bit of a shift, but it's the economy driven. There was hundreds of jobs down there at the state pier, and we've witnessed now this debacle, it seems like, between the city of New London, the state of Connecticut, its former authority, and under Scott Bates back in the day. What's going on over at the state pier? The jobs seem like they're leaving, and where's that going to be ending up with this new wind project?
God, that's a mouthful, huh?
I did my homework, Heather. I did my homework. I did some studying on you.
I wish I had a crystal ball.
No, but it's a fair question. There's jobs being lost in New London. There are jobs. Fishermen are being put out of work.
There's a salt person who's had a salt business there. There are fishermen that are being moved to a different location. There is a union there of about 40 people that have worked there since they haven't all worked there since the 30s, but that union's been there since the 30s. That is going to be displaced unless they can negotiate something with Gateway to be able to put them back to work, which Gateway says they want to do. So, the jury's still out on that. But, it's interesting to me because I'm losing track of time, but I want to say about a year ago, the Republicans pushed because we saw this corruption that was going on at the Port Authority with the former chairman and, you're
referring to Scott Bates, the former chairman?
The lady from Old Lyme that, her daughter was painting pictures. They were spending $3,000 to buy this woman's paintings for her daughter's paintings who sat on the board. I mean, just everything wrong that you think about when you think about government and quasi-public agencies. They were like the poster child for the way not to do things, right? So we wanted to have a public hearing. We wanted them to come in and to answer questions to the legislature on, geez, how did you allow this to happen? How come you don't have credit card receipts for all these fancy dinners? How did you, all those questions that you would want to answer. And the governor said, yep, okay, we're going to get that to you. Is that what you need? The next thing we get was what we call a public forum. And you know what those are like. Yeah, that is like a pre-scripted itinerary of, okay, these 5 people are going to speak. And unless you're on that committee, you can't ask any questions. So somebody like me, I was not on transportation. I could not ask a question. I could not, ask Bonnie why she did this. I could not ask Scott Bates, geez, if you were in charge, how did you not know this was going on?
Right.
So that was really not what we wanted at all. It was not a public hearing. So
pretty disappointing to hear that side of politics, but that was inherited, I guess, from the Malloy administration onto the Lamont administration. Do you feel like, and we're winding down, I want to respect your time, Senator Heather Summers, taking her time out of this busy day to talk to us on the News Rocky Show. We want to know, is there a future there with this windmill, in your opinion? Do you think this is going to take off and create jobs, for example, down in the New London port?
I think that there is an opportunity for New London to get out of its own way and to be successful. I do. I do think, though, that the Port Authority, after just reading about, paying $500,000 for somebody to find something, is just outrageous. And I think that it needs a deeper look, and it may need to have legislators be sat on that board and come back under the fold of maybe DOT. Because right now, I didn't think that before, but when this contracts review board is going through stuff, it's just, it's the gift that unfortunately keeps giving. We can't have that. People don't have faith in their decisions. There still is this cloud of corruption. And until that goes away, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to have a successful transition to something that's thriving there in the city of New London. Well,
Senator Summers, I want to take this moment to thank you for coming on with us today, respecting your time. We definitely want you to come back on and give us some reports. Hopefully you get back into what is somewhat of a normal sort of setting up in Hartford. Any parting ways or suggestions how people can find you for information, your website, Facebook page? You can direct them now for us, please.
Absolutely. If you're interested in what is happening, you can go to my website, which is you can find at Senate Republicans. You can also email me at heather.summers@CGA, so Charlie Girl Alpha.ct.gov. And you can sign up for our newsletter or the updates, and I don't overwhelm you with updates. I just try to give you an update of what's happening in the legislature so you can keep up to speed on all these things that can affect you and your family. So thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk of very soon.
Definitely, and love to have you back in the studio here with us. We'll invite you as we launch this whole new project. As I told you before we started, a brand new studio coming from the Forward TV network. We launch March 1st, so we'll set that up with your people. Senator Summers, thank you for coming on, and thank you for the information.
Thank you, and congratulations. I can't wait to see your new facility in Norwich when we can actually get out and about and see it.
Thank you very much, Senator. And give Mark my best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the snow.
Thank
Bye-bye.
You. Bye. And so that was Senator Heather Summers in the 18th District as we wrap up this show on News Rocky. You know, each and every day we come to you with this content. We try to make sure that you're enjoying what we're talking about. Senator Summers works in a district that's very diverse. She actually works from the Mystic, Stonington area all the way right up into the Plainfield area. Very diverse communities, anywhere from, you know, economically very thriving communities to very struggling communities like Sterling, Connecticut. But she has a way to actually represent all voices. I want to say that I brought up early on in that interview a little bit of my disappointment, and I think it should be yours as well. Senator Summers is a really qualified leader, and I think that Senate in Hartford, the Republican Senate, dominated by males, they made a grave mistake this year, and I want to call them out on it. I think you made a big mistake. Senator Summers should be your leader and your voice in the Senate in Hartford, Connecticut. Unfortunately, you chose to go in the same old direction. I think that has some of an effect on the Republican Party across the board. We talked a little bit about that, but I will give Senator Summers very good credit. She keeps her chin up and she keeps working hard for her constituents. In Connecticut, it's not about being a Democrat or Republican. It should be about the people of Connecticut. It should be about what you're doing, what you're providing, and what you're able to fix, because there's a lot of problems in Hartford to fix. I know. I was there. I want to just say thank you, Senator Summers, for what you do to for your district, what you do for the state of Connecticut, and keep on fighting. We'll keep on fighting on News Rocky each and every day, coming to you at 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So make sure you tune in into the ring each and every day. We got some great guests coming up. We're actually going to have Norm Pattis coming up, the famed attorney, on the show very soon on News Rocky. So guys, get in the ring with News Rocky each and every day at 4 p.m. and make sure you invite some friends to get in the ring with you.